Hello and welcome. Premier League football is back and we are here today to preview all of this weekend's action and the rest of the season. This is the Premier League preview video and podcast with oddschecker and WhoScored. I am your host, George Elek, and I'm joined by WhoScored, two of WhoScored's finest. They're two of their own, Martin Laurence and Josh Wright. How are you guys doing? You're right.
Yeah, very well. Thanks, George. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. A bit annoyed I didn't put it on a shirt. If I'd known you were going to do that, I think Josh and I would have smartened up a little bit.
Made an effort.
Threw us under the bus there.
I know. Better than your Villa shirt anyway.
That's it, yeah.
But yeah, great to have you both here to chat through what has happened so far last night. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be here to just preview the rest of the Premier League season. We're going to be looking at the betting markets around the title race, the top four spots, the relegation battle, and of course, the Golden Boot race as well. And fingers crossed we'll find some value for you. We're going to briefly touch on the games we saw last night. We're recording this on Thursday at about midday as well. So we've had the start of football, a drab 0-0 draw and an absolute thumping from Manchester City over Arsenal as well, but a bit of controversy in that 0-0 draw as well, which I'm sure we'll touch upon. Before we get into the football, just want to point everybody in the direction of the oddschecker app. It's free to download. It collates all the best bookie offers, the best tips, the best odds, and the best free bets as well. So if you've been looking forward to having a few bets on the Premier League, it is absolutely essential to maximise your winnings. Also, if you're not familiar with WhoScored as well, an absolute, a vat of info about Premier League football and European football and even EFL football as well, around players, statistics and analysis. It's like the most important companion you can have to your football betting. So important to have those two tools at your disposal. Certainly two things that we've been using when coming up with our bets and our thoughts today. So guys, last night, Premier League football came back. The first game was Aston Villa hosting Sheffield United. It was 0-0. We didn't get treated to a goal. The second game was a 3-0 victory for Manchester City over Arsenal. Maybe on the face of it, doesn't look that surprising. What stood out to you guys the most? Martin, what really stood out to you, having not seen any Premier League football for 3 months last night?
I think the tempo was actually surprisingly good, I thought, in both games. Even though, like you say, the Villa Sheffield United game was pretty drab. I think that's just the quality on show. You'd expect a bit lesser quality to restart the campaign. So I wasn't surprised by that, but the effort was certainly there. In that game, I thought Villa played pretty well. I thought they were the better team. I don't think there's any arguments in terms of the chances created and things like that. I think Sheffield United probably only had one chance, and that wasn't even the goal that obviously should have been. That was a cross. So I thought the intensity was pretty good. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I quite liked the crowd noise on Sky. I didn't think that was bad at all. The timing could have been a bit better, but certainly better than the alternative, in my opinion. I thought that as a viewing sort of spectacle, I didn't think it was too bad. I thought in terms of the style of play, it was certainly a bit more direct than we used to, particularly from the Man City Arsenal game. And whether that's just sort of testing out like match sharpness and awareness of the centre backs, but it certainly worked in that game. You saw a lot more long balls than you would expect, and that was a route in the Villa Sheffield United game as well. So maybe a hint towards the fact that we could see a bit more Sam Allardyce football. We could see a bit of Pep Guardiola start taking some lessons from Big Sam or something like that.
But it's interesting that, because I noticed that as well, especially in the first kind of 15 minutes of the City game. But doesn't that go against what we've seen, especially in the Bundesliga, where a lot of the possession was being retained, but in deeper areas, basically, maybe that's a sign of the league. But it seemed to kind of be at odds with what we've, no pun intended, with what we've become to expect from these games behind closed doors, with a little bit less atmosphere at the grounds.
Yeah, I think in terms of the Arsenal City game, obviously Arteta knowing Man City and Guardiola knowing Arteta probably played a part. They probably sort of tried to play on each other's team's weaknesses. That might have been an impact in that game in particular.
Is that why Pep made sure that David Luiz had to come off the bench?
Yeah, yeah. I think that was the one change that Arteta would have hated to make and had to make. So yeah, another great one for him last night.
Josh, which game, or did you watch either game? Did you watch?
Yeah, I tuned into the City game. I'm actually ashamed to say that's the first game I've seen in lockdown. Haven't seen any Bundesliga game live. I watched a Champions League game, the Valencia-Atalanta game before lockdown, and I was quite nervous because I didn't enjoy it behind closed doors. But like Martin said, I think the crowd noise was pretty good. I genuinely thought some City fans had actually broken into the stadium at the start of the game. Like I just forgot that there was no fans, which is obviously a good thing. I thought the start of the game was a bit curious, and then I thought just before halftime, City stepped it up, and if Leno wasn't producing those saves, it could have been 3-0 before halftime. Obviously, the David Luiz gaffes made it quite fun to watch as well. I think most people probably expected that from David Luiz after seeing his little clip against Brentford. So I don't think that was any surprise what he did. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the return, I've got to be honest.
It's interesting you talk about the crowd noise, because when I was watching the Villa game, in a way, I felt like halfway through the second half, it went 2-1 Sheffield United, because you had one instance where, if anyone's living under a rock for the past 24 hours, Oliver Norwood put in a cross from wide, and Nyland, the Villa keeper, kind of made a bit of a hash of catching it, but Keenan Davis kind of rammed into him, and the ball was quite clearly over the line, and Michael Oliver was pointing at his watch because quite clearly someone had basically just forgotten to turn Hawkeye on. And it meant that the goal wasn't given despite it clearly being over the line. And then you also had two instances in the game, one for each side, where whoever was choosing to what sound effect should happen clearly pressed the goal button when it wasn't a goal. So you had two instances. One was quite realistic because it was when, I can't remember who it was, a Sheffield United player shot into the side netting. I think it might have been Ender Stevens. And it was one of those that was like, oh, when the crowd think. So it was 0-0 in reality. I'm going to do a bit of after timing as well. I wouldn't normally do this, but I actually backed 0-0 before the game at 8-1, which is probably the luckiest winner I have in my life, given the ball literally went in, and there is supposedly a foolproof, technological tool being used to prevent that from happening. So yeah, very, very lucky winner for me there, backing a 0-0, and they're quite clearly being one goal, but still getting my returns. Just before we move on to the markets, Josh, is there anything that you saw from the games last night that you think, when looking at the games this weekend, when looking at further games for the rest of the season, you'd keep in mind, maybe from kind of a gambling and stats angle?
To be honest, it just reaffirmed to me that Arsenal are not going to close the gap on fourth. I know people were suggesting that maybe with the work that Arteta could do during the lockdown, that they would have a chance of closing the gap, but I honestly don't think that's possible with the players that he's got at the moment. So from that point, I think you can rule them out for sure. Even if fifth is available for Champions League, I don't think they'll get that either. It's a shame that Man City are so far off Liverpool, because I think just the way that they can turn up still after 3 months off, I think they would have pushed them all the way. And also the fact that Bruyne played so well in patches just also reaffirmed that he's the best player in the league.
Yeah, we're going to get on to the best player in the league shortly. I agree with you about Arsenal. There's a colleague of ours at oddschecker who's an Arsenal fan, and I've been saying to him pretty much since Mikel Arteta came in that I'm yet to really see much to suggest that he's much of an improvement on Unai Emery. There have been some very scrappy victories. There have been some pretty poor results as well. And there was nothing last night to suggest there's much there either. I don't really see that they've improved a great deal since the beginning of the season, even if maybe they picked up a fair few wins. Martin, anything to add?
Not really, but I would say like the whole 5 subs and the water breaks. I don't know how long the water breaks are scheduled to go on for, but they don't seem overly necessary to me at the moment.
Water breaks in the rain.
Certainly not last night's conditions. But yeah, the 5 subs is obviously having an impact. I feel like yesterday, certainly in the Villa game, they were just sort of being made for the sake of it. I don't really think there was much tactically behind them, and personally, I don't think 5 substitutes is really necessary at this point. Maybe 4, but like even still, I don't see the point for it. But yeah, that obviously will impact the season in terms of clubs and their squad depth in general. Is going to have a big impact. So I'm not sure that's particularly fair on certain teams that don't have the wealth of sort of riches and the abundance of talent throughout the entire squad. But yeah, obviously that will continue to impact this season.
Soft tissue expert Mark Laurence there on the 5 subs rule. Let's look at the top end of the table, because now all teams have played 29 games after the games last night, and Liverpool are still top. Liverpool are top on 82 points. They've played 29 games and drawn 1 and lost 1 of those, winning 27. Manchester City are on 60 points, 22 points behind them. And then a few teams below who I think literally cannot win the league. So starter for 10 here. It's probably the easiest one you're ever going to get. Is the title race over? I can't really believe I'm even saying it. But yeah, is the title race over? It's on the script. I have to say it.
It is 100% over.
Yeah. Anything to add? I mean, it's 1 to 1,000. I mean, I think even one bookie, a 1 to 100, that Liverpool win the league. I mean, it's basically like an ISA. It's like a good ISA, isn't it? You just stick a few quid in it and you get your money back.
I think Liverpool, like the results they've got this season, the consistency is amazing in terms of results. But I wouldn't say they've played like amazing all season. It sounds weird because they're 25 points clear. But I think if you were to compare City's best performances and Liverpool's best performances, I think you'd probably say City have got the better performances more often. But obviously 25 points is all that matters. And the fact that they're clear, they're well deserved to be champions.
If I was really mean, this is where I'd give your Twitter handle for Liverpool fans watching, but I'm not going to do that. I mean, Martin, given that we have to just assume, correctly so, that Liverpool are not only going to coast to victory. Probably the only thing that could stop them would be a second wave of coronavirus hitting the UK realistically. But it's nonetheless a massive game for them on Sunday at 7 p.m. where they go down the road to Goodison. I mean, this is one of those derbies where I think we'll see in some cases matches that would normally be pretty fiery without the fans are going to lose their bite. But you've got to think a Merseyside derby, especially with Everton, able to try and inflict just Liverpool's second defeat of the season, still going to be fairly lively.
Yeah, I think certainly from a sort of mental aspect, it'll be lively. Whether the quality will be great, I'm quite sort of. I think that's up for debate. I don't think games at Goodison between these two teams have been great in recent years. So I'm not expecting an incredible spectacle. We might see another sort of controversial moment like we did with Pickford dropping the ball there. Like, seems on topic right now. So there might be something like that separates the game. But yeah, obviously, if City hadn't won last night, it would have been a huge spectacle, and there would have been so much intensity to that game, I think. But from both sides as well, obviously, the last thing Everton want is for Liverpool to win the title at Goodison Park. But yeah, so in a way, it was a shame that that didn't happen, but at least it sort of prolongs the inevitable. So yeah, it should be a good game, but I don't expect it to be a classic Merseyside derby. Put it that way.
What have we made so far of Carlo Ancelotti's Everton? Because he's another one in my pile of managers that I just can't really have him, and I don't think he's made Everton much better either.
Right. Okay. One of the most successful managers of all time.
Yeah, but that's the narrative, isn't it? Like his record in domestic leagues, given the clubs he's managed, is like fairly rubbish. And I'm not, this isn't me just saying this. Just I've been called a few things in the past, and one of them is desperate for engagement, which is absolutely fine. But if you think he's managed in his career, right, Juventus, Milan, Chelsea, PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and Napoli, right, those are I think like 7 or 8 clubs who will expect to be challenging at the very top end of each division. He's won as a manager. He's won 1 Serie A with Milan. He's won 1 Premier League title with Chelsea. He's won 1 Ligue 1 with PSG. He didn't win La Liga, and he won 1 Bundesliga. He's won 4 domestic titles in that time. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as saying I would fancy myself to do that, but I think you could take a few managers out of League One and League Two, and I'll pick them myself who would rival that record. Am I talking nonsense here for both of you? I mean, I don't know.
Not nonsense. I think it's quite exaggerated. I get your point. I wouldn't say he's been rubbish, to put it that way, but I would agree that he's sort of done what you'd expect at certain teams, like no more than you'd expect at certain clubs. I think there's no doubt he had an impact at Everton when he came in terms of just shoring them up a little bit, making them just a bit more steady. And I think that's what you get with him. He's by all accounts, he's renowned for being a good sort of man manager and not really a sort of disciplinarian. And obviously, maybe that's what they need straight after Duncan Ferguson for a couple of weeks. But yeah, he's done a good job. I think they tailed off pre-lockdown, so it'll be interesting to see how they pick up again, because they weren't performing particularly well for the last few games. I think they hadn't won in the last three, and they got well beaten by Chelsea. So it'll be interesting to see how they pick off. But I think this is a perfect game for them to pick off in terms of coming at it with some real intensity. They've not got anything to play for other than just upsetting their rivals. So yeah, we'll see.
8-30 Liverpool are to win the game, which I think is cracking value. The draw is 100-30 Everton and 19-4. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to go through it game by game, but given there's not much to talk about Liverpool except for the fact they're going to coast towards the title, might as well touch on that quickly. But it's much more exciting looking at the race for the top four, where we have City, as I mentioned, are pretty much home and hosed. They might even be mathematically. They're on 60 points in second. Leicester on 53 points. Chelsea on 48. Manchester United on 45 in fifth. Sheffield United on 44 after that point last night in sixth. Wolves in seventh on 43 points. Spurs 41 points, 29 games as well. And Arsenal 40 points. I think we're going to draw the line at Arsenal. Should probably draw it above them, to be honest. Is it those teams, those 8 teams into 4, or are we saying that after last night, Josh, as you mentioned, Arsenal are probably, it's worth looking towards next season now?
Yeah, I definitely think so in regards to Arsenal. I also think that we just assume that 4th is the Champions League place and City get their ban overturned. I think Chelsea, I really think they're going to slip up. Their run-in's really difficult. They got Man City in their second game back, and they finish with Sheffield United, Liverpool, and Wolves in their last 4. And assuming that Wolves and Sheffield United still have something to play for, and Liverpool are always going to be a tough game, I think they could really slip up, which could be quite problematic for them now they've signed Timo Werner. Not sure that he would have perhaps signed up if he didn't think they would have Champions League football.
I wonder if there's a little clause in there.
Yeah. But and I really think Man United are going to do it. I think they're probably the next best placed team. 6 of their last 7 games are against current bottom half sides. They've got Pogba back. They've got Rashford back. So I think United are best placed to pick Chelsea to 4th.
United are currently 17-10. So heavily odds against to finish in the top 4. Chelsea currently odds on at 4-6. Now, talking of managers I don't rate, Manchester United, Martin, it seems pretty clear that this summer there's going to be a pretty big rebuilding process. A player very close to my heart and a player very close to your heart, Jack Grealish, is probably going to be wearing red at Old Trafford next season. But this season, do you think they have what it takes to maintain the good level of form they showed before the break and get into that top 4?
Yeah, I think they do. I think, like Josh says, with the players that are returning, given how well Bruno Fernandes had settled in, I just think they've got something sort of potentially special coming to them. With Rashford being so much improved this season. I think there were starting to be some questions about whether he was really that guy who was going to be the next big thing for them up front.
And then you remember how old he is. You think,
yeah. Daniel Rashford, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this season has been a real season of progression for him, and the clearest sign that he is going to be a top player. So yeah, I just think they've got a well balanced team. I think that right wing spot is is the weakness. Daniel James is not a Man United player for me, but he tries very hard, and he's got qualities. He's got pace.
He's very quick.
He's very, very quick. But technically,
worth remembering that when he made a bit of a name for himself last January, when he was very nearly bought by Leeds, at that stage he wasn't really getting in the Swansea team, and then 8 months later he's suddenly the next Ryan Giggs on the wing for Manchester United. It doesn't really work that way.
It's obviously harsh because he's still a young player.
Of course. So
I don't want to just sort of tear into the guy. But I think in every Man United game I watch, I just think he sort of stands out as just being lacking the quality of those around him, and his impact in games is so minimal. Like, I think he's literally there to sort of be a sort of nuisance on the break, and beyond that, in general play, I don't see what he offers. But that wasn't the point. That wasn't your question.
It wasn't. But I made into Ancelotti, Arteta, and kind of stopped myself doing it. So you're allowed to have a go at Dan James.
Yeah, I think on that topic, in terms of the reports that Grealish may well go, I know Josh wrote a piece for us quite recently on how that. I'm just not that sure that makes sense for Man United anymore, particularly with Bruno Fernandes arriving. Rashford's done really well on the left. I know people will expect him to go back up front eventually, and then Grealish could play on the left. But the suggestions that Grealish would play on the right are pretty ridiculous from a Villa fan's perspective. He's never played there. It would completely sort of nullify his sort of best traits in terms of drifting in off that left flank, putting him on his right foot on the right wing. You just don't get a proper Jack Grealish in that way. So that's not how he'd play.
What about on the left of the three?
Yeah, he could play on the left of the three, but like you say, that would move Rashford forward and then
the left of the sitting three.
Oh, of a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
He can play that role, obviously. I think that's ambitious in a midfield alongside Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah.
And potentially Paul Pogba. That would be suicide.
Yeah.
So obviously you need a sitting midfielder. Scott McTominay has his merits, but I'm not sure the McTerminator is ready to carry on that much responsibility. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm sort of 50-50 as to whether he'll go to United, or 50-50 as to whether he'll go at all if Villa stay up. Obviously he goes if Villa go down.
Really?
Yeah. Unquestionably.
No.
In terms of
I can't believe you're 50-50 if you.
Yeah. I just think in terms of, I just think Manchester United's interest seems to blow hot and cold, and to me that's just a bit curious. Like it spells to me that they're not sure that they want him, and for the money that he would cost, I don't know if they take that risk, whether he's the player they need. If they could get Jadon Sancho, they certainly won't get Jack Grealish, in my opinion.
I absolutely love the fact, Martin, you're sitting here talking about the possibility of Manchester United being risk averse with their money. That is, I think that might be the claret inside you talking.
But at 75 million for a player, like I said, if they don't go for a Sancho or who else, Havertz or something like that, then maybe. But I think it's 50-50 at the moment. And then beyond that, I'm not sure who signs him for that price.
I'd love to. I mean, what you said is right. I'd love to see him go to a team like a possession-hungry team where he could play on the left-hand side of a kind of more sitting three who play a very high line, and he could just take up that space between the left-hand side and play kind of overlap with an inside forward, I guess, in the way that Bernardo Silva often does for City on the right-hand side. That's where I'd like to see him. But anyway, we digress. You and I never have a conversation that doesn't somehow end up talking about Jack Grealish. And I thought he was brilliant last night, to be fair. In a bad game, he was quite clearly the best player on the pitch, as seems to happen quite regularly. Looking down at the other teams still in the hunt for the top four. Wolves are 8-1 to finish in the top four. Spurs 14-1. Sheffield United have drifted out to 25-1 after last night, as of Arsenal to 30s. Leicester 1-6 best price. First up, are Leicester home and hosts? Do we think that they're there? Champions League football next season?
I'll let you take that one, Josh.
Okay. I think, probably are. I think the break came at a good time. They weren't, apart from smashing Villa, 4-0 before the break, the results weren't particularly good before that. Vardy had a little niggling injury in that before that game, so he should be well rested. I think they are probably like there or thereabouts, although they do have some tough games. Really tough games, actually. They finished with Man United, Tottenham, Sheffield United in their last 3. But I think they are probably just about there.
And what about the teams kind of below who are looking to chase them down? Can we see any value in those ones?
I like Wolves, personally. I just think they're a very hard team to beat that are capable of beating the teams around them. I wrote an article for The Guardian earlier in the season that got universally panned by Wolves fans, suggesting that they had made a slow start to the season, which they had. But my sort of point in that article was that they were sort of relying on late goals too often, and they were being outshot by far weaker teams. But stylistically, that's kind of just continued. And I think they've been coached in a way that they come on strong in second halves of games. I think they're arguably, possibly with the exception of Liverpool, arguably the fittest team in the league. And I think that will be important in the run-in. I think they've got a decent run-in in terms of fixtures. So if not top 4, I know there's a market for top 5 now, given City's circumstance. So I could easily see them getting that 5th spot. And I think they play Chelsea on the last day of the season. And I genuinely think that could be a shootout for a European place. Yeah, so I think that could be. So yeah, that's my game to watch on the last day of the season.
Just
a bit premature.
We've got a few to watch between now and then. But yeah, Wolves are 3-1 to finish in the top 5 and are 8-1 to finish in the top 4. I was told a stat. I think it was before this season, which is quite interesting, saying that if you basically followed every top flight manager in the big 5 leagues over the last 5 seasons and had level stakes betting on their team, so you'd follow them, whoever they're managing rather than any other team, Nuno would be the one that you'd win the most money backing, basically suggesting that of any manager, he is consistently performing above expectations, you have to say, because you can back Jurgen Klopp week in, week out, and that's going to make you a few quid. You're backing it up 2 to 5 shorter, massive odds on. Whereas with Nuno, whether it's this time at Valencia or at Wolves or elsewhere, consistently upsetting the odds. So maybe that's a way to analyse managers' performances that I hadn't heard before. And I'm sure, given the good campaign they've had so far, that probably still rings true. Quickly before we move on, we'll touch on Spurs. Spurs are 5-1 to finish in the top 5. They are, I think, 14-1 to finish in the top 4. Jose Mourinho was caught, trying to put his players through some drills during lockdown. Probably in the least surprising story during lockdown. Well, there are quite a few more surprising ones. I must say, I wasn't too enamoured by Jose's Spurs team before football finished. Is there any reason to be more positive going into this second part of the season?
I think for Mourinho, Tottenham have been given some sort of renewed hope. I think before heading into lockdown, they were done. I think they were so poor. They were going to miss Kane and Son for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
They were going to miss Kane and Son for the rest of the season. And I think you could have safely said that they would have coasted to the rest of the season. Few defeats here, few wins there. But I think now they've got those key players back. I think they've got renewed hope, especially if they can get a positive result against Mourinho's old club, United, on Friday. I think that could give them some momentum, but I would still be quite surprised if they did get over the line. I think Mourinho's time has gone now, or long gone.
Martin, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I was just waiting for you to weigh in on your overrated managers. Yeah, I do. I think I don't think there's a chance for them top 4, top 5. There's definitely a chance, albeit a faint one, I would say. Like you say, the obvious news is Son and Kane returning, which is, to be fair, that's an immeasurable improvement on what they had. They had nothing. They had Troy Parrott, who nobody knows if he's any good, or least of all Mourinho.
Very good on Football Manager.
So yeah, they're in terms of players that have returned. Interestingly, it's interesting that Man United and Tottenham play tomorrow, because those are the 2 teams that have probably had the biggest boosts in terms of fitness. So that'll be a really interesting game. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Just quickly, because you mentioned it, the prices for that game, for those people who haven't looked yet, looking at oddschecker, they're pretty stark. I mean, you've got United away at Spurs. We have no idea how to quantify that home advantage that Spurs have got, but United are massive favourites here, about 7-5 to win the game. Spurs is bigger than 2-1 in a couple of places. The draw 12-5. I mean, as someone who basically, football punters, I guess, look at betting two ways. You either back who you think is going to win, or you look at the prices and work out what value is. And with Son and Kane being back, with Mourinho being as he is, I'm not a massive fan, but I think if I was going to believe that any manager would do well given 3 months to prepare for a fixture against their former club, it's probably Jose. And the players they've got back on their side. That looks like a massive, massive price to me.
It definitely wouldn't be unlike Mourinho to ruin a party, so to speak. I mean, that's what he's done pretty much his whole career. And like you said, 3 months to prepare for a game, you probably wouldn't want any other manager but Mourinho to set up some sort of plan, even if it's all 11 players behind the ball. So it definitely wouldn't surprise me if they did spring an upset, or certainly against the odds, an upset. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Right, that's my tip, I'm afraid to say, guys. I'm back at Spurs on Friday night. That's 8:15 kickoff. Should be an absolute cracker, although, maybe not if Jose does park the bus, as you say. We'll get on to the relegation battle now before looking at a couple of individual player markets. Where do we start with the relegation battle? That's the question. We'll start from the bottom. Norwich are on 21 points and are bottom. Villa 26 after that point last night and 19th. Bournemouth next up, who are going to be without Ryan Fraser as of the 1st of July after he refused to sign a new short-term contract, which has upset a fair few people, it's fair to say, on the south coast. Watford on the same points above them on goal difference on 27. West Ham 27 as well and 16th. Then comes Brighton, who are on the slide before football finished. Southampton on 34, who are moving in the other direction. And then I'm going to go to Newcastle on 35, because when you look at that squad and who's in charge, it doesn't seem that unlikely that they could pick up very few points between now and the end of the season. I'm calling it now that Everton and 12th are safe. So 13th down to 20th, where, start at the bottom as we started at the top. Norwich, are we happy just to cast them aside and say, lads, see you in the Championship next season?
I think that is the case. I think it would be a great shame because Norwich play better football than quite a few of the teams above them. But they've still got to go away to Arsenal, Chelsea and City. And you can realistically just chalk off those three as defeats.
Although they're the games they're best at. Like we saw them on opening day against Liverpool really take the game to them. We saw them beat City as well. It seems like almost playing, because the high intensity way that they play, having that space in behind to work with and the kind of frantic nature of the games and how they play out almost suits them. Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point. But if you just weigh up the two sides, I think the odds would reflect that as well, that the
very true.
Teams are favourites. So if you think that's 3 games gone, so that means they need at least 2 wins from 6 games just to make up the difference to safety. And having only won 5 of their first 29, I think it's a big ask for them.
Big ask. I'm sure you're wearing again your Villa shirt. If you were, you'd be saying that Norwich are definitely gone. How are you feeling about Villa?
A bit different after last night. I would say before last night, not that they were outstanding by any means last night, but they kept a clean sheet and didn't concede a lot of chances at all, which is very unlike Aston Villa this season. Yeah. There was one sort of error by Courtney Hawes where Douglas Luiz had to save his bacon.
That was horrific. That pass.
So bad. And that's why Villa are where they are, because for most of games they look okay, and then they just have the propensity to do something absolutely mad, and that's why they are where they are. I think the fact that they looked a lot more organised yesterday was a big positive. I would have said before that game I think Villa are done. Certainly on the way that they were playing before the break. Break undoubtedly came at a very, very good time for Aston Villa, just because morale was through the floor, I think. And they've got John McGinn back, which is a big boost. He was sort of relatively anonymous last night.
Looked a bit rusty, didn't he?
Yeah. I think
one lovely shot, and that's what he's kind of.
Yeah, what you expect from him in terms of just sort of bombarding around,
Yeah.
putting himself about. But once he gets back fit, you can't sort of overstate how much of a big boost that is for Villa in terms of improving on the alternative. So yeah, I'm sort of definitely not 50-50 on this one. I still think Villa are rightly favourites to go down alongside Norwich. But I have a little glimmer of hope still within me, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
I think also, sorry.
Yeah.
I think
No, go for
also
it.
the performance of Keenan Davis really impressed me last night. Even though he doesn't score enough goals, I think he offers Villa an outball that Wesley certainly didn't. Even though he's a big guy, his hold-up play wasn't good. And I think Keenan Davis could be a surprise player that obviously people don't really know about. It was his first Premier League start last night, so I'd expect him to feature sort of on and off with Ali Samata, but he could be an important player.
You're forgetting Borja Baston, Martin. How dare you?
I am deliberately forgetting Borja Baston.
That's one of the weirdest signings in Premier League history. But yes, we're relegating Norwich. And quickly on Davis as well. I mean, I don't think that save of Dean Henderson's has got nearly enough credit. It was a remarkable save at his near post. The kind of, you don't really see them too often, where it was a reflex save from a really well struck shot on the wrong side. The opposite side to the way he was diving. It was, he's a keeper to really keep an eye on. I mean, just on in terms of like who scored. You have your average ratings and player ratings and stuff. How does Henderson stack? I'm putting you on the spot a bit here, but how does he stack amongst the rest of the Premier League keepers? Because he's certainly impressed with the eye test.
I think in terms of goalkeepers, he's relatively middling, which I would say is quite harsh, just based on the fact that Sheffield United defend so well as a team. So he's far less busy than a lot of the keepers around him who have had good seasons. There are keepers who've been busy, who haven't just been busy, if you know what I mean. They have actually played well. Players like even Leno last night. I thought he was really, really good and has been very good this season. I'd have him down as Arsenal's best player this season, even ahead of Aubameyang. And keepers like Dubravka, Guaita have all played really well this season. So Henderson is around that mix, really.
Okay.
Sorry. I would say it's difficult for it's hard to quantify saves. So you can't one save that's outrageous is the same as a save that's comfortable. A save is a save, statistically speaking, anyway. It's difficult to quantify them. So that's probably why Henderson's rating doesn't reflect that. He makes a lot of really good saves, but they're maybe one or two in the game.
Yeah. What I would say, sorry, on that point is kind of watch this space, just because there's a certain statistic that may be coming soon.
Whoa! That is an exclusive. Unbelievable! How exciting! Can't believe it. Right. We're relegating Norwich. I don't know how we ended up talking about goalkeeper ratings. We're relegating Norwich. We're not quite relegating Villa yet, but Norwich are 1-9, Villa are 2-5, and then it really is all to play for that third relegation spot. Bournemouth, as I mentioned, 5-6 without arguably their best player. West Ham are 9-4, Watford are 5-2. Worth pointing out that under Nigel Pearson they certainly improved. Brighton 11-4. Managers who I think are very underappreciated. Graham Potter, one of them, but looking like he could be facing relegation in his first season in charge at Brighton, which will upset me immensely, as all the Chris Hughton fans will. Yeah, anyway, let's not talk about that. It angers me too much. And then Newcastle at 20-1. Saints, according to the odds at least, pretty much out of it. The 60-1. Martin, where do you think the value is here?
I think Josh has a decent tip on the value. Personally, I think in terms of Bournemouth, I think Villa are well placed to leapfrog Bournemouth. Whether they get out is another matter. I think Bournemouth have got a tough run in. Obviously, you say Fraser's gone. I'm not sure that's a huge sort of. Well, it is a blow, but it could be worse if it had happened last season when he was obviously playing far better than he has this season. Then obviously it's a different story. But I think there's also the news that David Brooks, I believe, is back, and I think certainly based on sort of their most recent form. I know Brooks has been out for a long time, but I think Brooks is potentially a better player than Ryan Fraser. Obviously plays on the other wing or can play in the middle, but he's a massive boost to sort of offset Fraser's departure for sure. But I think personally, I think they'll struggle. They're too inconsistent. They concede a lot of goals, a lot of sort of unnecessary goals in gluts. They tend to play in sort of fits and starts. They'll either be terrible for 6 games or they might win, and then they'll go and win 2 on the bounce that you don't expect.
Yeah.
So they're a tough team to predict, but I think they're in trouble. Like I say, I think Josh has a good sway towards a sort of value tip for relegation.
Come on then, Josh.
Yeah, well, just before I get to that, I'd say if I was a West Ham fan, I'd be pretty concerned. I think Martin picked out, just looking further forward, Martin picked out Wolves Chelsea on the last day of the season, but I think West Ham Villa could be a shootout for relegation on the last day of the season. West Ham open up with Wolves and then back-to-back London derbies against Tottenham and Chelsea. They could be in real trouble after those 3 alone. But for my tip, this might upset you, George, but Brighton, I would be quite concerned with.
Yeah, I saw this before. I'm not going to argue with you, but let's hear it. Let's hear why. I want to hear why.
Okay, so it's only 2 points. It's obviously not a big lead, but they've got Arsenal, Leicester, and United in their first 3 games. Then they've got Liverpool and City back to back further down the line, and that leaves potentially 4 games. Just to get enough points to survive. And I think just looking at those big games that they've got, I think they are pretty good value for the drop, even though it would be a shame for Graham Potter's resume.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a massive shame, I think, if we were to lose from the Premier League, Norwich, Brighton, and let's say, for example, Bournemouth, although Bournemouth's style of football maybe isn't quite as easy on the eye as it used to be. But, Graham Potter is a manager who, I'd say it says a lot that he managed to get this job on the back of a season at Swansea where they finished mid-table, because it's all about the process. And I think Brighton under Potter have the potential to be a really exciting Premier League team in, say, 2 or 3 seasons' time, when the infrastructure that he's building there and the style of play, he's one of those project managers where you can be sure that academy players now aged kind of 15 or 16 will be playing a style of football that means they are going to be ready to step up when they come through. So I have no doubt that in the same way that people were quite perplexed by Potter being appointed and Houghton being sacked last season after he kept them up, I have a feeling that Tony Bloom, the owner, will see the bigger picture. And I'd be very surprised if Potter wasn't still there next season, even if they do get relegated. But it's hard to argue with you. At 11-4, they're not going to have to drop many points in those. Say they got 1 or 2 points from those 3 games, which wouldn't be a bad effort. That price is going to shorten, isn't it? So, so 11-4, I can totally understand that. Newcastle at 20s for a big price backers. Are they, 35 points at the moment? Brucey doing a pretty good job, but any XG nerds like myself will tell you that pretty soon something's going to have to change, because they can't continue the way they are. But with 35 points at the moment, they don't need many to stay up. Is 20-1 value, or do we think that they've probably done enough?
They're safe. Yeah, I think they probably need 1 win and a couple of draws from 9 games to be safe. So they'll get that. Like you say, in terms of XG, they're not the most appealing team, and no Steve Bruce
they're
side
not the darlings.
No, they're not. You won't get Steve Bruce really sort of endorsing XG, I don't think, anytime soon.
Unless, it's always the same with these managers. They hate it, and then as soon as it reverses and the variance goes the other way, suddenly they're like, "Yeah, these stats guys tell me we're actually brilliant," and it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I just think that they're too hard to beat, as particularly at home, and that's what you get with Steve Bruce. Fair enough. I didn't enjoy watching Aston Villa under Steve Bruce, and I'm not sure how many Newcastle fans enjoy watching Newcastle under Steve Bruce, but he's definitely done. You can't argue that he's not done a good job. Their squad isn't particularly strong, so I'd say in terms of their league position, at least they're actually overachieving. Now that we know sort of how good Joe Ellington and players like this are.
Good is an interesting word there, I think.
Yeah, exactly. How good or lack thereof in terms of quality. That was a bizarre signing for the price, certainly. But yeah, I think they're safe. I think what Josh says about Brighton is true. I think all of those games come in their next 6 fixtures, all those five games. So you'd be surprised if they aren't in, or certainly still very much on the verge of relegation with 3 games to go. And then obviously it's a bit of a crapshoot in terms of how that pans out. So I'd expect them to be in real trouble with 3 games to go, and their price will have shortened dramatically, like you say. But they don't win enough games, basically, Brighton. That's the issue. The football is decent, and they're another team that sort of perform above their means. I think even against sort of Man City and stuff like that, they've played really good football. Like you say, taking the game to better opposition. So I agree, it would be a real shame for teams like Norwich, Brighton, and even Bournemouth or Villa. Both their managers sort of want to play. So it would be a real shame if 3 of those go down, which I think is probably likely. But there's some strong teams coming up. So
indeed, there are. That's one for another podcast, I think. But yeah. So Brighton 11-4, as you say. Worth pointing out that Neil Maupay probably has quite a big role to play in their survival. And Brentford, in his first season, he was dogged by missed chances, and then in his second season became incredibly clinical. So I don't know if there's anything to that. I don't know if this gap is maybe going to bring out that side of him, because certainly he made a very good start at Brighton, but certainly in the last couple of months, so that before football stopped, he was missing absolute hatfuls. So if he can get back to his scoring ways and show the form that saw him get that move, that could make quite a big impact. Just 5 minutes to go. We're just going to do a top goal scorer chat and a player of the year chat. Jamie Vardy is the favourite to be Premier League top goal scorer. Aubameyang is 7-2, Vardy's 2-1, Aguero 11-2, Salah 6-1, and then kind of 16-1 and bigger the rest of them. Jamie Vardy, who'd have thought it? Jamie Vardy and Brendan Rodgers, a match made in heaven. Yeah. Is he going to continue the scoring form to get him the Golden Boot?
Yeah, I've got Jamie Vardy to get it, to be honest, just because I think he's the sort of player who will just return from this sort of break with no sign of change, really. He's not an athlete in any way, so I don't think sports science really applies to him. He doesn't really get many muscle injuries. He doesn't have sort of much muscle to get injuries. He's just this wiry, Red Bull infused rocket. Energy. Yeah, who's his pace and his sort of just his work rate, especially in the sort of immediate return, I think will be really, really even more problematic than it has been for defenders. So I think he's the sort of player who can make a really fast start, and if he does, I think he'll be too far ahead to catch. If I was going to pick a sort of value tip, so to speak, I'd probably go with Mo Salah, just because I'd say him and Harry Kane are of those that are left that will play every week, crucially, because I think that sort of rules out Aguero. Those 2 are the players that can score in 2s and 3s, which is crucial to sort of bridging that gap. So that would be my lean in terms of value, would be on Mo Salah.
I mean, Kane's 8 behind, but he has in the past gone on these absurd scoring streaks at the end of seasons when there's nothing to play for, where he just kind of racks up about 8 in 5 games. But I'm trying to find a price for him. I'm not sure what he is. He's 250-1 with Bet365.
No way.
No, he's not. That is incorrect. That's player of the season. Yeah, he's 28-1. Sorry, guys. Sorry, people listening. That's for SpreadX. There are only 2 places. If you want 3 places, you've got to go to Betfair Sportsbook with 22s. But yeah, I see your kind of line of thinking there, and it's hard to disagree. On Vardy, I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with Gary Taylor-Fletcher, who was talking about Vardy because they played together at Leicester in that promotion season where Vardy didn't actually do much. And they became very good friends. And apparently Vardy says that he, all the sports scientists and all the medical team at Leicester basically say that he is now, like right at this moment, the fittest he's ever been by like miles. Like even as like a 26, 27-year-old compared to now, like he is a completely different specimen to what he was then. So anybody concerned that Vardy's gonna, age is gonna catch up with him anytime soon, I think he's one of those players where you just ignore the numbers by his name and you just take what you're seeing at face value. Josh, do you have anything to add on the top goal scorer market?
I think I have to agree with Martin in terms of Vardy and Salah. I think they're probably there or thereabouts. But if anyone fancies like a bold outsider tip, then I think we might see something special from Rashford. He's been a hero off the pitch during lockdown, and now he's back fit. And it would be an amazing story if he would to return for Man United in the form that he showed off the pitch. He scored, so he's 5 goals back on Vardy. He scored 5 goals in the reverse fixtures against the teams that United have got left to play. And the fact that 6 of their last 7 games are against current bottom half teams, I think there will be opportunities for Rashford to at least close the gap. So I think that he could be an outside tip to catch the leaders.
So he is 22-1 with spread X is 2 places, 17-1 elsewhere. Marcus Rashford, as you say, he's had a very good and productive lockdown, much more productive than mine. I thought running 4K every couple of days was productive, but Marcus Rashford is making sweeping changes, helping children across the country. So, yeah, fair play to him, and fingers crossed he can get in the goals back on the pitch. PFA Player of the Year is going to be our last topic. Sadio Mane is 2-1 favourite, Jordan Henderson 3-1, Kevin De Bruyne 4-1. Virgil van Dijk 12-1, Trent 16-1, Salah 25-1. So unsurprisingly dominated by Liverpool players. De Bruyne the only joker in the pack at 4-1. I mean, first of all, if this is based on just the best player, is Kevin De Bruyne a bet at 4s?
Yeah, simply put, I think if this is an individual award, then Kevin De Bruyne being 3rd is ridiculous in the odds. I think he's certainly in our ratings, he streaks ahead of the closest rival. And I think it's so hard to argue with the fact that he's been the best player in the league from an individual standpoint. I think if you look at the sort of Liverpool players, the reason that they're so far ahead is that they've had 6 or 7 players who would feasibly be in with a shout for the Player of the Year award. Were Kevin De Bruyne not there, in my opinion? Like 6 or 7 players who've performed outstandingly, whereas City have had 1 really over the course of the entire season. And that sort of would bring me on to my point about Jordan Henderson, just in terms of on the pitch, in terms of his merits for winning the award. Like for us, certainly he's nowhere near it, and that's based on the fact that there's always a recency bias in terms of Player of the Year awards. Like the players that have performed really well in the run up to voting or whatever tend to come in really short prices, and that's certainly been the case for Jordan Henderson. He's actually our top rated player in 2020 with more than 5 appearances. He's our highest rated player, but if you look to 2019, he was 63rd. In a nice sandwich between Dan Burn and Jan Vertonghen. So I think if you asked a Liverpool fan, say on New Year's Day, is Jordan Henderson anywhere near the Player of the Year? None of them would say yes. I don't think many people would have him in the top 10 or even top 20. So I think his is certainly based on form. And I understand it. He's the captain of the team that are going to romp to the title. But if we're looking at an individual award, Kevin De Bruyne has been the best player in the league. I don't think there's any question about it. I would have Sadio Mane as the second favourite, and he's been exceptional. But yeah, that's just my take on it, and it happens to align with WhoScored's ratings.
Well, yeah, I mean, if this award is called the WhoScored Player of the Year award, I think Kevin De Bruyne would be a massive bet at 4-1. But it's not, and I think we have to say now to anyone listening that the narrative around things like it's Liverpool's first Premier League title, they haven't won for 700 years, and Jordan Henderson's the captain, like those things do carry meaning within these awards. You look at sports personality; it happens every year. The voting means that stuff carries weight. So, Josh, I mean, if you were going to have a bet in this market, what would you be looking at?
I mean, just touching back on Henderson, it'd certainly be a nice story for him. I mean, he was ridiculed for years during his start of his Liverpool career, not being good enough. I think it was Ferguson that said he didn't want to sign Henderson because of the way he ran, which I think carried with his career for a few years. But obviously he's come good, as Martin said. He hit form at the perfect moment for when the votes were due to be cast. I don't know if they still were cast. But yeah, De Bruyne is definitely, no question, the best player in the league. His I think last night as well in patches, he showed that he was a class above everyone else on the pitch. He did a few odd things, like he gave the ball away on the edge of the box, which Arsenal could have scored from. But apart from that, he was class, I thought. If there was a Liverpool player, I would really quite like to see Trent Alexander-Arnold win it. I think what his performances from right back, I think are just mind-blowing, what he's able to do. So yeah, I think Trent would be my pick for that. But I suspect he would probably get Young Player of the Year.
Yeah, Trent 16-1, but as you say, probably get Young Player. I just think that there might still be a bit of value in Virgil van Dijk at 12-1 with Betfred. Just universally accepted as being A, one of the best centre-backs in the world, and B, basically the reason that Liverpool are able to win a Premier League title. And when it comes down to voting, given that Sadio Mane is competing for kind of plaudits alongside Salah and Firmino up top, and you've got Henderson, where despite the narrative that runs alongside, there's still the issues that, as Martin mentioned, of earlier on in the season, and he's not the flashiest player. I think Van Dijk has a massive shout to get it. So that would be where my money would be going. Thank you very much, guys. I feel like I'm now ready to consume all of the football that's going to be thrown at us over the next few days. Hopefully a bit of value there as well. For anyone watching or listening, make sure that you subscribe to the oddschecker YouTube channel, subscribe to the oddschecker podcast as well. Make sure you download the oddschecker app. Crucially, make sure that you go to WhoScored. If you've never visited the site before, you are massively missing out because, as I say, you have every single bit of statistical analysis you could possibly want free at your fingertips across the Premier League, all through the EFL and in Europe as well. So fingers crossed, there's a bit there to keep you company over the weekend. And thank you very much to both Josh and Martin for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.